Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Ben Calvert, Deputy Vice-Chancellor at the University of South Wales. It's my pleasure to start this session by telling you a little bit about the University of South Wales and how we engage with business. The university was itself founded by business. Nearly 200 years ago, our founding institution, the Newport Mechanics Institute, was created and run by industry. It was established to bring education to working people and to address societal needs by incorporating scientific thinking and research into real industrial solutions. Mechanics Institutes revolutionised access to education in science and technology for ordinary people. So, 200 years ago, a focus on adult and lifelong education, on widening access and transforming lives, and a completely integrated relationship with industry and local economies. We aim to build on that vision today. Our focus is clear: to impact on our region by working with and for businesses and our communities. Our aim isn't just to be a seat of learning, but to build economic value and play our full part in creating communities that are capable, resilient, and innovative. To this day, we are constantly looking for new ways to bring the outside world in. We've placed partnership and innovation with industry at the heart of our new 2030 strategy. So what does that mean for us now? Firstly, we create opportunity for our students by making sure that our courses are designed in collaboration with companies who ultimately will offer our graduates jobs. And our courses are taught by people with real industry experience. We want businesses to help us take this further by setting students challenges and problems to address that are real, so that they do not just learn in a theoretical vacuum, but impact by creating real solutions. We want our students to feel a sense of professional identity from the moment they set foot on campus. And because many of the challenges of the world lie outside of our campus, we also want them to spend more time outside of it, working in partnership with others. A great example is our Cyber Academy in Newport, where we provide GCHQ accredited courses developed in partnership with companies such as General Dynamics and Airbus. Half of student learning is based around problems that companies set. By doing this, we can be at the forefront of delivering the skills that employers and our economy and society needs, improving not only the prospects of people, but also the places that we're an integral part of. Our research and innovation collaborations with industry also provide solutions to real problems, such as powering the future of transport, to our work combining advanced robotics and AI to change the lives of elderly people living in rural communities by monitoring their well-being through robotics. At USW, we look to make a difference in practice, not just on paper. Less talk, more action. By working hand in hand with global players such as Thales, we have played our part in setting up initiatives such as the National Digital Exploitation Centre. It is the first research and development facility of its kind in Wales and provides local, regional and national businesses with a base to test and develop digital concepts, in particular their cybersecurity in our increasingly connected world. But we know small and medium-sized enterprises are the real backbone of the Welsh economy. So over the last 5 or so years, we've set up initiatives such as USW Exchange, our Startup Studio and CEMET, which enable us to link the university with businesses that traditionally we would not have had access to. Our Cyber Village, which is co-located with a Cyber Academy in Newport, is home to many emerging and established cyber SMEs, allowing them space to collaborate. There is a thriving startup ecology in Wales, particularly around technology-led businesses, and we believe that collaborative projects such as CEMET can play an even greater part in developing Welsh industry than before. It will be even more essential as we recover from the impacts of COVID. And by the way, many of those small companies are set up by USW graduates. We have a proud record of graduate enterprise and startup, launching students from our incubation facilities into successful ventures that create additional value for the Welsh economy. And it's agile companies that have technology at their core, which will be a conduit for us keeping highly skilled graduates in Wales. As we look to the future, it is therefore vital that projects such as CEMET continue to be funded and supported by government to enable the continuation of this work. The impact cannot be underestimated. Through working with these companies, we have numerous real examples of delivering new and emerging technology solutions and directly supporting businesses to access millions of pounds of funding and investment from sources such as Innovate UK, the Development Bank of Wales, as well as private investors. These are investments that many of these startups would not have been able to make without access to our direct intervention. Most businesses we have worked alongside have improved their profitability, with some quadrupling their turnover after engaging with CEMET. The incredible work of CEMET is a fantastic example of the university's values and missions, putting collaboration with industry at the heart of everything we do and making a real difference in practice and not just on paper. So I will now pass over to my colleagues Matthew and Clayton, who will explain in more detail how we can connect with your business and support you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Calvert. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for this session supporting Welsh startups with academic research and knowledge exchange. My name is Clayton Jones. I'm Programme Manager of CEMET.
I'm Matthew Smith. I'm the CEMET Commercial Manager.
Over the course of the next hour, we'll explore mine and Matt's experience of supporting Welsh SMEs with the CEMET programme. We'll do this by providing a summary of what CEMET is, the services we offer, and example case studies of some of the businesses we've worked with. In the second half of the session, Matt and I will discuss a range of topics, including the benefits of companies to seeking R&D support and how best to ensure such collaborations are successful. Finally, at the conclusion of the session, you'll be able to ask Matt and I any questions you may have. So without further delay, I'll pass the reins on to Matt, who will get us started.
Thank you very much, Clayton. So there are a number of ways in which industry can engage with academia. CEMET is just one example of this. If you want to know more about what USW can do for you and your business and find out more about what Dr. Ben Calvert discussed, then please get in touch. There's some great programs at the university and great projects that are outward facing and looking for industry partners. So on to CEMET. I want to talk to you about the initial stages of the CEMET programme and how we engage with industry. But before I do that, I'd just like to provide some small amount of context. So CEMET is a funded project. It's part funded by ERDF structural funds and in part by the University of South Wales. We began our current journey in 2015 as a successor to a previous project, CMAS, and are currently operational until June 2023. We're based at the University of South Wales and support clients via our in-house team of developers and researchers. Our remit is simple: to support Welsh-based SMEs with the creation and adoption of emerging technology in order to improve their services, their processes, their practices, and their products. We consider emerging technology to be technology that has yet to be fully commercialized, or another way of saying this is technology that the private sector can't yet effectively deliver. Artificial intelligence and machine learning as an example. And we work closely with many other projects and very closely with consultants and developers in the private sector to offer and take client referrals and to push our clients forward to build upon the work we have undertaken. So how do we support clients? Well, we do that in two main ways. The first of which, you can consider us a team of remote CTOs, and following that process, a remote R&D team. I'm going to talk to you about that initial phase and how CEMET as academia is working with and supporting industry. So there's generally support two types of projects in the initial phase of CEMET. Firstly, clients come to us with an emerging technology idea. It might be well developed, or it might just be a seed of an idea. We will work with the client to ensure that in either case, their idea is challenged, both from a development and a commercial perspective. We will support clients with the initial stages of the product development cycle, helping them scope their idea and creating a high-level specification, highlighting the most important functions and features, and starting their product roadmap. Given that we're all working from home at the moment, this is achieved via a series of online workshops with myself, Clayton, and a selection of the development team. This process is not really time-bound, but we generally work with a client for up to 2 or 3 months with fortnightly workshops. This can be achieved in a much shorter period. It really depends on how fast the clients are able to progress. There's usually a lot of actions for the client following each workshop, things they need to consider, research they need to undertake, contacts they need to access. The second type of projects we normally engage with in the first stage of CEMET are clients that don't have a clear idea of what they need. Sometimes they will come to us and say, this is my business. How can emerging technology support us and help us improve our offering? The process we follow is the same in both scenarios. We will support the client in defining and scoping potential projects. The end point for this process is normally when enough knowledge has been exchanged in both directions that the client is in a position to move forward. If the result of that CTO advice and guidance is a product that the private sector can deliver, then the private sector should deliver that, and we will work with the client to find a suitable partner out of the many, many skilled businesses we have in Wales. If, however, the results of that advice and guidance are a product that is a little bit more niche, a little bit more novel, we will move the client into the second stage of the CEMET program, the remote R&D stage, which Clayton will talk about shortly. So there's lots of things to consider if you're looking to engage with academia, some of which we will cover now shortly. But for the moment, I'll ask Clayton to talk about stage 2 of the CEMET operation.
Thanks for that, Matt. Just as CEMET acts as the remote CTO during stage 1, as Matt's already covered, in stage 2, similarly, CEMET acts as a remote research arm on behalf of each company. This process commences with workshops that are attended by, of course, the company, members of the CEMET development team, and Matt and I. And the objectives of these workshops is to distill the project idea into requirements, which are prioritized by business value. Now, only the company knows that prioritization process. We use a system called Moscow to do that, whereby the requirements are put into 4 categories of the must, should, could, or won't, which is out of scope. It's very important that that process is completed because it allows us to understand what are the most important requirements and what we need to tackle first as part of the collaboration. These requirements are then converted into user stories, in other words, work packages, which are to be completed by each party. Then we can start delivery of the research project using the Scrum project management framework. This work is undertaken in fortnightly sprints, and at the conclusion of each sprint, CEMET and the relevant company will meet in order to review the work that both parties have undertaken during that 2-week period, and to plan and agree best steps forward for planning the next sprint. Each project is completed within 4 months, hence the turbo research tag we sometimes associate with the assistance we provide. But in that relatively short period, lots can be achieved. Normally it's an MVP, a minimum viable product, which will allow any given company to seek investment for future development. It's a lot easier to do that when you've got a tangible product as opposed to just a business plan where you're describing something that's at that point intangible. Or due to the knowledge transfer document that we produce at the tail end of the collaboration, which is essentially the Bible of the project. It's really got every facet of the collaboration included in there. What was the original problem? What was the approach we took? What worked? What didn't work? It's written both in sort of layman's terms and technical terms. And that document can be used certainly by a more tech-savvy company to enable them to undertake further work independently. Finally, stage 3 involves ensuring that a robust product roadmap is in place so the company is able to capitalize on our support. As Matt touched upon earlier, impact is very important for us. It's not about just hitting output targets, it's about creating impact and making an impact in Wales. And also it may involve CEMET contributing towards the promotion of a market-ready product. We've got a resident publicity events coordinator who's an expert in that field and has got lots of contacts in various media outlets. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of the 3 stages. I'll now pass you back to Matt, who will provide the first of today's case studies, Antiverse.
Thank you, Clayton. So, yeah, we've got a couple of case studies we'll run through now before we go on with the rest of the presentation. As I mentioned, clients normally come to us for CTO support in the first instance. And when they come to us, in most cases, they come to us with a problem that needs solving. CEMET can provide the solution to that problem. Our most successful projects are a mix of client-led sector-specific expertise and CEMET-led technology expertise. And very often we fit into that space between an idea, the seed of an idea, and funding, and Antiverse is a great example of this. So Antiverse as a company is a new type of antibody discovery company accelerating drug development. The platform exists at the intersection of structural biology, machine learning, and medicine to enable breakthroughs to happen more quickly and cost effectively. It's recognized as one of the top biotech startups in the UK, and this service is already being used by big pharma. It was founded in 2017 and is dedicated to engineering the future of drug development to change the course of people's lives. And it's proudly headquartered in Cardiff in Wales. So Ben Holland, the CEO of Antiverse, approached us with a problem. That problem was centered around the creation of antibodies. Now, I'm not an expert on biology, so you'll have to excuse my potentially crude description of the process. The cells have antigens on their surface, and we use antibodies as a form of medicine for bacterial infections. Those antibodies need to stick to the antigen. The antibody comes along, sticks to the surface of the infection, and triggers some kind of chemical process to neutralize that pathogen. Now, the body can make its own antibodies, or we can manufacture them. The hard part is finding their structure. I think the range of possible variations of antibodies is something ridiculous, like 10 to the power of 100. You'd never have enough time or material to make that. So currently, the scientists use an educated guess. They will simulate this, throw some possibilities together in a lab, and see what sticks. If it does, congratulations. Well done, everyone. You have new medicine. It's an okay process. It's time consuming, and there's a lot of guesswork before the guesswork. So armed with this knowledge, the question that Ben came to us with was, can artificial intelligence, if provided with the structure of an antigen, suggest the structure and performance of an antibody? Using machine learning, we answered that question, and the question was yes. We worked on a very early proof of concept system with Antiverse to look at making that educated guess even more educated. We wouldn't necessarily be able to design the antibody, but we could suggest the best ballpark. So trial and error becomes more targeted with less errors. The idea being that you progress from potential batches sticking or sometimes sticking, as it is currently, to everything sticking, but to what extent does that stick? I think Ben came to us initially with documentation, a few trillion points of data to help train the neural networks. The project was a huge success, and Antiverse fully capitalized on the work we have undertaken. They secured a combined £1.4 million worth of investment in November and are now post-revenue and working with top 20 global pharmaceutical companies, finding them more antibodies than the traditional methods that I just described. They recently completed a piece of work with a large, well-known pharmaceutical and had a 94% accuracy rate compared with 60% that the pharmaceutical company was getting and obtaining themselves. I should also point out that Antiverse are hiring, so go and look them up. I'll hand back to Clayton now, who is going to show you another case study example of how we partner with industry.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Mobilized Construction Limited. Now, Mobilized Construction Limited specialize in road network analytics, in particular pothole detection to assess the health, quality and deterioration of the road network. Now, I'm sure you've all been in the car and hit a pothole, and it's a nuisance to say the least. Sometimes can knock your tracking out of kilter and can cost you a trip to the garage. But it can be more serious if you're a cyclist. Rather than paying money, you could be paying with your life. So it's a very serious business they deal in. And Kevin Lee, the CEO of the company, approached CEMET to seek our support with two elements of their work, as Matt alluded to, essentially two problems. Firstly, he wanted a better way of collecting road data so it could be effectively labeled and uploaded to the cloud. And in response to this, CEMET developed a mobile application, which essentially it was a device that sat on the dashboard of Kevin's car, and on completion of a journey, automatically uploaded the accelerometer and GPS data to a database for analysis. Now, Kevin's second problem was his existing accuracy rate when he approached CEMET was 50% for detecting potholes, and he wanted to increase that. He was looking at sort of 80% plus prediction rate by utilizing machine learning. So that involved an awful lot of data collection on Kevin's part, lots of car journeys around the same sort of journey, same sort of track, and then subsequently a lot of labeling. It was a lot of work on his part. But at the conclusion of the project, Kevin was delighted that the neural network designed by CEMET, Gareth Evans, a member of our development team, had achieved a prediction accuracy of 92%. Kevin's company was subsequently shortlisted to compete in the final of the Pitch at the Palace competition, and he's also secured significant funding from the Development Bank of Wales to undertake further development. So he's delighted, we're delighted, another success. Moving on to the next part now of this morning's session, Matt and I will now conduct an informal Q&A session, which will hopefully cover the most pertinent issues regarding business and academic collaboration. So, Matt, the first question I've got for you is, you, in your capacity as commercial manager, you've obviously engaged with hundreds of SMEs over the last few years. What would you say is the most common reason that companies approach CEMET for support?
Okay, I guess there are two main reasons, depending on what part of the program our clients are looking to access. As I mentioned, CTO support is a big part of what we do. Offering this service to clients that do not have a CTO or are not in a position to get a CTO is incredibly valuable to them. We have a lot of clients come to us for this service and this service alone, where we will offer advice and guidance on their technology projects, or how they can improve their business services or products by utilizing emerging technology. At the conclusion of this process, we generally recommend that the client obtain CTO services for themselves, for their businesses, and we do make referrals out to the industry. I don't think that many businesses in Wales have access to a CTO. Certainly, out of all the businesses we have supported, I can only really recall 3 companies that had a CTO, and that's fine. I understand that there are other concerns when starting a business, but if you have a non-tech person trying to lead tech change or tech creation, it can be difficult for them to fully understand exactly what is required, how much things are likely to cost, how long development is likely to take. Very often we have clients come to us for CTO services and they have a deadline of 3 months to get their system built, and they haven't approached anyone yet. And this seems like a simple mistake to make, but one that is made all too often. You're unlikely to find a developer that will be free to build your system, even if it took as little as 3 months. They'd have other work lined up. They might not even be free in 3 months' time. So it's this kind of planning, I think, that you might not have that knowledge of unless you have somebody a little bit more technical working as part of the business. And even if you did find somebody, you'd have a whole range of pre-software development process to go through, which could take 3 months in itself. I would say there needs to be a point for a lot of businesses that are using technology or providing software as a service to bring that development in-house sooner rather than later. And without a CTO to lead that transition, it can be a difficult barrier to overcome. So most definitely, one of the most important reasons, main reasons people come to us is for CTO support. I think the second reason is for engaging with CEMET is the R&D support that you've just talked about, Clayton. Many clients have an idea, a great idea for a product or service, but financing that idea to create a prototype can be difficult. We all know once you have a prototype and have been using it to test the market, investment and funding becomes ever so slightly easier. For some clients, but not all, but for some, CEMET fit into that gap between idea and prototype. And a lot of clients see us as a good option in creating a prototype, and following our engagement, they will seek investment and funding from the likes of Innovate UK, Dev Bank of Wales and other private sources. So I think those are the two main reasons: CTO style advice and guidance and R&D support. But I also like to point out really that businesses new to R&D can see us as a safe pair of hands to support them on their journey. Our clients get to learn from us, not only about the technology involved in their product, but also about product development and the R&D process, project management and methodology, and the tools needed to create products just from an idea. And we have seen a number of our clients use this newfound knowledge to move forward with their businesses and create new products and services without our intervention, which is great to see.
Absolutely. Okay, my second question for you is, emerging technology is a very broad term. There's lots of definitions for it, I guess. But in your experience, what are the most common areas of tech support requested by our new clients?
Okay, so for us, emerging technology are those technologies that the private sector are not able to deliver effectively at that point in time. And we have seen a shift over the years in project requests as the private sector expertise evolves. We'll move on to other technologies. So I should say that's another great reason to engage with academia, really. Whilst there are great companies out there offering great services in the private sector, sometimes the latest research to come out of academia, conducted by people who have the time to work on R&D, can help drive your business forward without the need for you to engage in expensive R&D yourself, which obviously may lead to businesses not concentrate on the day-to-day running of the business. At this moment in time, most businesses are asking for two things. So as discussed in the last question, we're looking at support with advice and guidance across all technologies, not just emerging technologies. And secondly, emerging technology development support. I think with that development support, our clients normally exhaust their options in the private sector first. They've tried and failed to obtain that expertise, and then they come to us. And to answer your question directly, I guess, we have a lot of requests for artificial intelligence and machine learning projects, sort of cross reality, that's virtual, augmented and mixed reality, and IoT solutions. I should point out that these requests are not coming from any particular sector. They really are coming from all type of businesses, and that's important to note. Engaging with academia isn't just for a particular type of business. It's not just for big companies. It's not just for tech companies. Far from it. We support all companies. As long as you're looking to develop or adopt an emerging technology solution, we will work with you. You could be a finance company, a training company, a construction company, and of course, a tech company. I think we supported legal firms and recruitment companies, for example, with machine learning projects that automate large parts of workflow and to find patterns in their data that a human would be incapable of detecting. We supported training companies with VR projects to improve the experience of learning and development, and construction companies with VR solutions to support the client experience. We supported health companies with IoT solutions to improve sleep, and we've supported robotics companies with AI and IoT solutions to support next-gen vehicle development. So many examples of successful partnerships between academia and industry, but at the moment, those technologies, AI, machine learning, cross-reality and IoT are the main reasons people are coming to engage with us.
Right. My third question is, having engaged with so many companies since the inception of CEMET, what advice do you have for anyone out there who's considering approaching the operation for support?
I think I want to point out that industry can and should engage with academia. Universities have a wealth of knowledge that can be shared with industry to help businesses grow and develop. And when you engage with academia and projects like CEMET, I think there are some simple, advice really that the companies can take on board. I'd say firstly, be open to new ideas. The companies that find it easier to engage with us are normally more agile and are seeking an open dialogue. Very often clients come to us for one thing, but end up with something different, something better. Some clients are open to this, some clients are not. Unfortunately, some clients have their own vision of what they want to achieve and don't really want to discuss why it may not work, or that there may be a better method of achieving the same result. The projects can still succeed, but more often than not, they kind of fizzle out. Might have been a good idea, but maybe the individuals involved were not in the best place to take that idea forward because of their unwillingness to be impartial about their product. And I think, at CEMET, we have a wealth of experience across all technology areas, and most clients recognize this and are eager to develop their product with our help. Secondly, I think clients need to follow a product development and project management process. There are tried and tested methodologies out there for this. You've mentioned Agile and Scrum, etc. I mean, Clayton, we could run a day's training on this and still wouldn't be enough to cover all the options that are available. The clients who engage with us are and are more successful, and normally those clients who are open to new ways of working and to follow methodology. User testing as an example. Some clients have a build it and they will come mentality, which doesn't very often succeed. With regards to user testing, you really need to begin the journey with your prospective clients before you even start writing a line of code. And there's methodology to follow in which to do this. Clients who start that process early, so much more likely to succeed than clients who are stubborn. I'll point out that being driven and single-minded, in my eyes, is very different to just being stubborn. And thirdly, we mentioned it before, we'll mention it again, I'm sure we'll mention it later, sector-specific knowledge. If you are looking to engage with academia, then either you or someone involved in your business, maybe someone on the board, really should have knowledge of the industry that you are looking to target. We can offer that technology expertise, but as you have seen from some of the case studies, we can't really have that sector-specific knowledge in every case. Projects can work without it, and we have done some projects with sector-specific expertise, hasn't been at the forefront, but they're generally at the bottom of the TRL, the technology readiness level, and really proving concepts rather than being anywhere near ready for market. We deal with lots of people who have great ideas, but very often a great idea isn't enough. There need to be a number of factors in place to support that idea. Things like technology knowledge, which obviously we can support, stakeholder, end user knowledge, and of course, sector-specific knowledge, knowledge of the industry you're trying to enter, even if it's to completely change that industry. Thank you, Clayton. I'd like to ask you a few questions now, if possible.
Of course.
What steps should a company take in order to become an ideal partner on a research project?
Well, I suppose that has overlaps with what we discussed a moment ago. You can approach this from a couple of different levels, but from a technical perspective, let's say they were approaching us to do a supervised machine learning project, then we'd require huge amounts of data in order to build an accurate learning system. And in the absence of that data, that label data, we'd be very unlikely to proceed, even if the idea was an excellent one. Even if that data does exist, it's absolutely essential that data is clean and it's labeled. I read a report recently that suggested that approximately 80% of the time spent on AI projects should be in sort of preparing, cleaning, and labeling the data. And I completely agree with that. I'm sure my colleagues in the development team who engaged in the AI support would too. Basically, what you put in, you get out. So, having a great idea is not enough if you want to pursue an AI project, for example. You would need all that huge amount of clean labeled data. Now, that's an answer from a sort of technological standpoint. In more general terms, to be a more effective partner. A lot of this is sort of common sense, but I think it's important for SMEs to set aside sufficient time to properly participate in the project. I understand that these companies are obviously live and they're earning money to pay the bills, so they can't shut up shop during the collaboration. But certainly when we talk about collaborative research projects, I'm being literal. We really rely on the company's sector-specific expertise. CEMET we can't magic a successful research project if we don't have that sector-specific expertise to back it up. Simply won't work. So we really need the time from those participating companies. Similarly, we need them to be fully engaged when we undertake testing and sprint reviews. I said earlier, we have sprint reviews every couple of weeks, and we might run 6, 7, maybe sometimes 8 sprints. It's very important that the company is fully engaged during those sprint reviews, because they're going to provide the sort of feedback that gives the project the best chance of success. Occasionally, we've had clients who haven't engaged quite as much as they could initially, and then on seeing the checkered flag towards the conclusion of the project, maybe around sprint 4 or 5, they start engaging more and really getting stuck into the sort of testing and feedback process. By then, it's a little bit too late. There's only so much we can do. There's only so much time left. So I'd say from day one, you really need to commit. You need to get involved. You need to provide your expertise, because it's just as important as the expertise that the academia are providing. And also, if possible, this won't always be possible, but if you can involve future development partners before the collaboration comes to an end. So if you're planning to use, third-party developers, yes, the knowledge transfer I referred to earlier will be there for them to refer once the collaboration comes to an end. But it'd be much easier to have a handover, and for our developers and the company's developers to have a real geek out and discuss, what's taking place with the project and future roadmap and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that just about covers it in summary, I think.
That's great. You obviously, I mentioned earlier about clients needing to be aware of kind of processes, product development, project management processes, to be able to manage a delivery project. What framework and software do you use in stage 2 to successfully manage those collaborative research projects?
That's an excellent question, because it is pivotal to the success, really, of CEMET. We use Scrum, which is considered the sort of de facto standard when it comes to software development. I suppose there's sort of different versions of Scrum. We've maybe got our own bespoke version, what works for us. But certainly we take the fundamental elements of the core framework, and that covers, inspect and adapt. For example, we make decisions on the basis of, what occurs, what we observe. We consider ourselves to be the dumbest, if you like, at the beginning of the project. The more work we do, the more we know, and the better the project becomes. But we kind of think that, as the sprints go by, we know more about the project, and therefore we can make more educated changes based on that empirical evidence, which is really important. Empowering staff, for so many reasons, this is important. The development team within CEMET, are really owners of their collaborative research project. Yes, I oversee all these projects and sort of fulfill the sort of product manager role, but I certainly don't micromanage the developers. They decide what user stories are undertaken first. They decide how long it should be attributed. We use a sort of T-shirt size system. They decide that. I don't dictate how long things should take. I trust them, and they reward me with excellent work. So by giving them that, by empowering the developers, they really do take ownership of the project, and that leads to a positive outcome. Simplifying communication channels, absolutely essential. I think there's some project management methodologies that are probably best left unnamed, are too bureaucratic. We take more of a, if we need to find out something, ask someone approach. You know, I know you can, if you need to find out something about a project, you can have a string of emails and copy everyone in and in a very formal way. But look, it's a lot easier to pop down the corridor, or certainly was pre-pandemic. Now it's just a quick phone call. If I need clarity on anything, I'll just speak to a member of the development team, member of staff from the participating company, and they'll give me the information I want, or whoever else wants that information. Just so much easier. Finally, transparency. It's very, very important that every stakeholder is aware of what's happening at any time. We don't want to be in the situation whereby, you know, I'm aware that we're in sprint 3 and so many user stories have been completed, but the client doesn't know. Well, the client's part of the collaborative research project. Why shouldn't they know? Now, I'll sort of go into this in a second, but we use some software that ensures that they do have full disclosure of what's going on at all times. And that's the way it should be. You know, every member is an equal member of the collaboration and therefore should know what's going on. As I mentioned earlier, each sprint of delivery is approximately 2 weeks. And during that, it's a cycle of designing, developing, and testing the product. And then it's bringing the client in, or Zoom call as it is now. And then we sort of demonstrate the work we've done, the working software, if you like, and then they share the work they've done. Regarding the software, which I touched upon earlier, we briefly use Jira, which is sort of purpose-built software for software development projects, but we found it was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. So we now use Trello, which is a simple, easy-to-use collaboration tool, organizes projects onto boards. And at one glance, from my perspective, I can see what's going on, who's doing it, and when it's due to be finished. And it also allows easy communication by all parties. So it's win-win.
Fantastic. I just mentioned a moment ago in mine around user testing as well, things that clients need to really be aware of before they engage with us. You know, can you expand on that in any way, given the relatively short-term nature of the projects we deliver, given, as you mentioned, they're 3 to 4 months, which is, you know, sometimes including workshops. You know, to what extent does user testing get undertaken with the client, and testing in general?
I don't think I can overemphasize how important testing is. You know, we've always undertaken testing, you know, early incarnations of this project and previous projects that I've worked on, but it's just, we've just realized over time how crucial it is. It falls into 3 separate facets, if you like. There's, of course, the internal testing. We've got a dedicated QA officer, and they are responsible for testing all the work undertaken by the development team to ensure that it's bug-free before it's disseminated externally for third parties to review. So that's one facet, which is fundamental, obviously. Then you've got the client testing. You know, so what initially we do is we provide a clickable prototype using something like Adobe XD. And, you know, this would be in sort of sprint 1 maybe of the collaboration. So there wouldn't be anything real for them to test, but the clickable prototype would look like, or would be our best guess of what the final version would look like. It would allow them to click through the screens, try it out, and highlight any issues, any early issues that, you know, do they like the button here? Do they like the scroll bar there? Anything really about the UI or UX. It provides a rich form of user feedback, which we can use to our advantage to produce a better version of the product. And we also give them an accompanying questionnaire, so it's very easy for them to answer the questions we want answered. Beyond that point, sort of sprint 2, 3 onwards, we would provide early working versions of the final product. And again, they'd be asked to do the same thing. Try it out. Yes, it's just a small bit of working software. It's nowhere near the finished thing, but let us know what you like, what you don't like, because it's, you know, sprint 1, 2, 3, maybe up to sprint 4, we can make some significant changes, and we welcome those changes. Thirdly, and the most important of all by a country mile, is end user testing. Yes, the clients approach us with the idea. Yes, CEMET is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to emerging tech. But the trouble is we dive so much into the project that we get the can't see the woods for the trees syndrome after a while. What we need to be doing at the earliest possible time is getting this software, either it's the clickable prototype early doors or it's early version of the working software, into the hands of the end user. They're the ones who will provide a fresh, honest perspective. Again, we'll provide questionnaires. And, you know, we make such fundamental changes that we overlook, the client overlooks, and that fresh pair of eyes from the user testing, they see it and they say, what about this? And we haven't even spotted a fairly fundamental thing. So that's really important. And like I said, we welcome that change early on in development, not so much sprint 5 and 6 when we're trying to wind up things, obviously. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. That's testing.
Fantastic. I think looking at the time, we've got time for another couple of case studies. Shall I reshare my screen?
Okay.
And let's have a look. There we go. Right. Hopefully that's worked. So yeah, I'll go first and talk about Lupus Medical. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Lupus Medical is another case study that really highlights the importance of the work that CEMET are undertaking and the importance of academia and industry partnerships. So Lupus Medical are a Cardiff-based specialist medical training company that cover topics such as sports, trauma management, wound management, infection prevention and control, mental health, first aid, plus many, many more. One area that they were keen to explore is how to simulate the demands of an emergent situation, increasing the realism of training that working on a dummy simply cannot bring. The question they brought to us was, how can virtual reality play a part in this? So we focused on an area that Lupus Medical training often, which is pitch side medical staff. And if anyone has been following the Euros, the football, then you'll certainly understand the importance of these people, given what happened last week. So by following the CEMET process, which hopefully you're aware of now, we held a series of workshops to better understand both the training process and the real world situation around this topic, and found that very often medical staff are called onto the pitch without a clear understanding of the incident. So they must rapidly diagnose the injury or condition in order to quite literally save a career or even a life. So we developed a VR scenario with Lupus Medical that focused on memory recall, something you can fall back on if the situation is stressful for you or confusing. We allow the medical staff to select the correct questions to ask the patient, select equipment and to use, and even work as part of a team in virtual reality, much like they would in real life. And all of this is contained within a virtual world where the scenario possibilities are far more varied than when using a physical dummy in a training room. So the project was a huge success. Early research that we have undertaken post-development is showing that this process allows the medical staff to recall and retain information more effectively than with the physical dummy training alone. I think, Clayton, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this the first project we started and finished completely remotely during the pandemic? I think we finished some remotely, but they were the first ones we've never actually met in person. Things are progressing well for them. Things are progressing well for them. Lupus Medical are working with Innovate UK on securing further funding to grow this part of their business, and they're also targeting a number of developers to continue to build upon the scenarios that we created. And Clayton, do you want to talk about AMSO?
Yeah, I'll briefly cover AMSO, another excellent project. Professor Nazar Amzo, CEO of Advanced Medical Simulation Online. AMSO manages a training company that provides educational courses to healthcare professionals. Nazar approached CEMET with his idea of improving the way that specialist courses such as ultrasonography are delivered to remote learners via VR. So that was obviously something we were very interested in helping him with. The overall objective of the project was to produce an interactive training scenario that would enable the user to undertake a virtual ultrasound procedure on a patient's shoulder. This involved a trainee using a digital equivalent of an ultrasound machine to accurately examine the patient. And all this takes place in a realistic clinical environment with immersion further enhanced by two-way dialogue between the user and the patient, and also ambient sounds. We also, interestingly, examined the feasibility of using cutting-edge haptic feedback VR gloves, which provide vibration feedback when interacting with objects in a VR environment. That certainly added a further significant dimension to the project, as it enabled learners to conduct examinations using touch alone. So yeah, this project has very recently been completed. Professor Amzo is delighted with the end result. I spoke to him the other day, and he's currently actively seeking funding opportunities. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from him with some good news very soon.
Fantastic. Some more great examples there. I think the first two case studies were centered around kind of machine learning, and these around VR. I think we got some time, Clayton, before the end. We've got a few minutes before we can take any questions. So just a bit of a question for you then. I've kind of said what the technologies are we're working with now. Do you think that'll be different on future projects? What technology do you think we'll be working on over the next year or so?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Emerging technology, you always think of new technologies, but you know, the definition also includes those technologies that you can continue development of existing tech. I mean, for example, AI has already made a huge impact over the past decade, and continues to play a huge part in our life, the way we live, work, and play, personal assistants, smart cars, and the like. But going forward, the AI market is supposed to grow to be approximately a £200 billion industry by 2025, and it's likely to be used by to predict service demand by hospitals and the NHS, so they can make better decisions about resource utilization. It just can be used in so many different ways. So that I think is something which is old in one way, but certainly is still new, and there's new interesting developments. And similarly, AR, VR continue to enjoy huge growth, partly I think because of the pandemic. Approximately 70 million units of AR and VR devices were sold in 2020. And it's, again, that's expected to grow to approximately $190 billion by the end of next year. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they're the most important areas. I mean, in terms of VR and AR, we normally associate that with gaming, but the reason that the market's growing so much is it's also being expanded for use within the private sector for training, education, marketing, even injury recovery. I read an article the other day about burns victims using VR in order to aid their recovery. So yeah, it's huge. I'm sure there's lots of other new technologies around the corner, but yeah, those two are still going to be very important. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you've covered the immediate future there. I mean, I think what we'll be working on post that depends on if we receive further funding and how long we're running the project. I think for me, more hopeful than anything is IoT. I appreciate that's a broad term, but I'm talking about IoT in terms of kind of prudent healthcare, care, independent living. I'd like to see that become far more prevalent. I think that wearables and possibly implanted technology will grow more within that space. As you've just highlighted with kind of AI and VR, this is the year for VR. How long have we been saying that, Clayton? Every year since 2012. But technology doesn't really land with a bang, does it, and become mainstream all of a sudden. It takes time, and And sometimes it kind of arise by stealth. It can take time for society to work out if we want to use it, what the rules around that use is going to be, and how it will impact our privacy. And I think that's kind of where we are with that healthcare, care, independent living in terms of IoT and wearable devices. There's kind of a lot of tech already in place to monitor, like the elderly remotely, automatically call for help if there's an emergency, predict potential biological issues before they occur. But you almost feel like society's not quite ready for that to become mainstream yet. I mean, it might be a generational thing. It might not be. Maybe society will never truly accept that kind of tech, that kind of way of living. But I have hope that it does. And if so, I'm hoping that we're working on more of this in the future, which will undoubtedly save lives and give more freedoms to those at risk. I want to be living in my house when I'm old. And people can check on me. I don't mind if they want to dial in on the camera. But there we go. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think that covers everything. I don't know if our colleagues at Wales Tech Week have got any questions for us.
Okay, fantastic.
I think not sure anything's coming forward. So I'd just like to say thank you for watching. Here's our contact details. So if you've got a project or you know somebody else who may be interested in getting in touch with CEMET to find out whether we can work together, whether we can support them and work on a collaborative research project, there's our contact details. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.